The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Yeah, Earnestly Speaking podcast. Let's get it. I'm a giant in New York, in Miami carry heat. So much more in store, my product can flood the street. Opinion Nation Godfather, CEO. Puff in the late 90s, gon' see me blow. Oh, got my hustle on, no imitation of bad. Army of untouchables, Opinion Nation staff. Never an off season, homie, check the numbers. Heart throb in my own right, supplying southern comfort. Earnestly speaking, my ego is well fed. Earnestly speaking, you're too feeble and no threat. See, I'm like a hurricane, you're a mild breeze. Earnestly speaking, leaving Eli a dynasty.
Earnestly podcast coming to you November 22nd, 2023. It is actually Thanksgiving Eve here. We got, of course, Big Jim, James Nies. We got Rob Bonnette on the show tonight. Fellas, happy Thanksgiving, first off.
Thank you.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving to you guys as well.
What do you guys got planned? You got any big plans tomorrow?
We're going to some of my wife's relatives for Thanksgiving dinner. I got to work at 5 a.m. on Friday, so nothing too
Really? Why so early?
Nuts. Yeah. I have an event on Friday evening, so to be able to get out of work early, I'm covering an early shift. So yeah, it's gonna be an early Black Friday morning for old Big Jim.
Oh my God bless you, man.
I mean, it's all right, man. I work in my house, so it's not. I don't have a commute. It's a 20-step walk from my bed to my desk. So I think I'll survive.
Life is great, obviously.
I love it.
Yeah, man. Rob, what are you doing on Thanksgiving? What you got planned?
I was heading to my brother's house. He lives about an hour from here. So,
okay.
Yeah,
I'm going to my mom's tomorrow early. My brother's cooking. She's cooking. And watch football and have a good time, and just typical every year with us, So anyway, a lot to talk about on this show today. This is a podcast that we've been planning for quite a while now, actually. But we got discussion around the upcoming election, but a little under a year away from the election, 2024. We got Survivor Series come up on Saturday. We're going to preview that. Also share our favorite Survivor Series moments, some wrestling news and notes I want to touch on. Then I'm going to touch on both your teams as well, too, in the NFL. Of course, your Commanders, Rob, falling apart fast. If my New York Giants played you guys every single week, we win a Super Bowl.
of course.
That, right?
Oh, yeah.
What the fuck is? I don't understand that shit. What? We can't even tank properly.
Nope.
No.
You can't even tank properly. And then I want to bring up one more thing on the Cowboys today. Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson got squashed in a beef finally after like what, almost 40 years. Jesus.
Yeah, almost 30 years later, man.
It's crazy. But let's get to it. Because I have a thing I do on X/Twitter, or whatever you call it. I like to share polls of the election or the race at large. And if you follow the polls, right now, which I know you guys hate that shit, and it's fine. I get that. Because I'm not someone that actually thinks the polls are 100% or even fucking 80% accurate. But looking at the polling right now, regarding the upcoming election, like it's clear it's going to be Biden against Trump. Trump's winning the nomination, barring death or somehow he goes to jail between now and November next year. But the polling right now, in my opinion, is very, very, let's say, concerning. So the last polls we had in the swing states that came out from the New York Times a couple weeks ago, 5 of the swing states, of the 6 swing states, Donald Trump led in those states, including Nevada by 10 points. The only state that Biden was leading in those swing states was in Wisconsin by a point. Okay, Biden's disapproval numbers right now, as of 2 days ago, I have 5 numbers here: 54%, 54%, 50%, 56%, 57%. He's also losing the black vote and the young vote in drastic numbers. And I say this because look, it's not abnormal that a sitting president will have some disapproval, some struggles. I remember Obama, prior to the 2012 election, there's some people that were wondering if he'll lose to Romney because of the same thing, but obviously that didn't work out that way. But there's a lot of concerns about this. And then to me, my biggest concern, especially in the last week or two, this is why I've been pressing on this. I think this Israel conflict could be a backbreaker, because I talked to a lot of folks in my family, and my family who are a bunch of Democrats have now told me they will not vote for Biden in 2024. Now, that doesn't mean they vote for Trump either, but it kind of has, at the very least, 2016 vibes right now, whereas turnout might be an issue for Mr. Biden in 2024. Now, you guys hate when I share polls. You guys hate this, and I get it. I'm with you on some degree with that. Am I being way overly concerned about this? Because on one hand, we have the polling, but then Democrats have done fairly well. They did well in the midterms in 2022. There was no red wave. Then last week, or 2 weeks ago rather, special elections, they did very well, especially red states. So something is not correlating here. Am I worrying too much on the optics here, or what? Where am I at here, Jim?
Yeah. I mean, again, as I've tried to tell you, and I'll let Rob handle that as well, is we're a year away, man. It's great if you're that into it and you want to talk about polls and read polls, and I think it's also important to understand where the polls are coming from, who's paying for the polls. I forget one I just saw last night. It was revealed that one of the polls, and I wish I could remember which one it was, that was showing Trump with like a 6-point lead, was put on by a company that is financially backed by somebody connected to Trump. So it's very important to understand where polling comes from. I don't dive deep into it, especially not a year out. I think you may be kind of worrying a bit too much with a year to go. And the thing that I've said, I even said it in 2020. Now, I was concerned that Trump was going to win the election in 2020. Obviously he didn't. But then when it came to the midterms, when it came to the elections this month, I wasn't as concerned, because the trend that I think we've seen over the last couple of cycles here is the younger generation, and I'm not even talking about myself. I mean, I'm 38, so I'm not
you're old. I'm
not lumping myself in that group, but like 35 and younger, 30 and younger, first time voters. They're a generation that I don't think is going to participate in a lot of polling. Like it's a generation that doesn't want to be bothered. It's a generation of, if my phone rings and I look at the number and I don't recognize it, I'm not answering it. I'm not responding to the text. I'm not responding to the email. So I don't know that polling is going to necessarily provide us the most accurate showing of what the voting public is going to do. And I think we've seen that especially in the midterms, and especially in the elections this month, is that you're seeing a lot of young people who have their entire life watched war and gun violence, and now one crazy political party trying to strip their rights from. Like these kids, they know they're going to be poor. They're going, they have college debt and a crazy housing market and a terrible job market. But like the one thing they're like, what you're not going to do from me is you're not going to take my rights away. So I think they're silently giving the middle finger to the polling and political establishment.
Interesting. Rob?
Okay, so here's something. So in July of 2011, Barack Obama's approval rating was 40%.
Yeah.
40. Okay.
That's pretty low.
Yeah.
Even that era.
Yeah. And so, all right, it's a year out, and so when the people who do answer polls a year, people are just there are people who are curious. Now there are people who are more likely to answer that that they either won't vote for the incumbent or that they will vote for the other guy,
Mhm.
whoever they think that might be, or who might vote for somebody else. Um, you're more likely to get those answers a year out because people aren't focused on it. They're I mean, if you're because look, nobody's 100% satisfied with any president, right? I
Right.
mean, and the way you voice your displeasure is to say you'll vote for someone else. And again, we're going on historical precedent here. And then also a lot of these polls, like Jim said, a lot of these polls are just poorly constructed. Um, polling used to be a lot better, used to be a lot more accurate. Because like Jim said, people answered the phone. And which I don't one thing I don't understand with these polling companies, you'd probably get more people to answer the phone if you just put your damn name on the caller ID.
Right.
I mean, like if I see the phone, if I look on the caller ID and I see Gallup poll or Gallup polling, you know, I'll answer that one because I want to see what they're asking about.
Yeah, Gallup
Right.
was definitely
Like I'm not afraid of being in a poll, right? But if I look at my phone and I see some unknown number and I'm 49, I'm not even I'm not one of these younger people. If
Yeah,
I see
no number, just a number,
I'm not
just a
answering
number
that
that
shit.
says political call.
I'm not
I'm not
answering.
answering, but if I
Hell
see that
no.
it's a poll, I might participate. I'm with you.
Yeah, and so polling isn't as reliable as it used to be, but also polling used to be something people you did for information. Now polling is it's content now.
Oh, no
For
doubt about that. I do
and
agree
now
with that part.
and over the past I don't know when exactly that took hold, but probably when cable news became more and more of a thing.
Mhm.
Polling is content now, and so and you got to look at the sample sizes. You got to look at if a lot of times they don't even reveal like the makeup of the sample, and so like African American voters almost never get sampled properly, which is why you see like ridiculous things like 20% of the black vote going for Trump, which is never going to happen.
But
And
he did pull double digits though with blacks in 2020 though. That is something to be said about that. He was
with
the
who?
highest polling president to poll with blacks in
With black men,
generations.
and I
Yeah,
can look up now. Is that exit polling or is that like the because see exit polling is notoriously inaccurate.
I think it was like 12-13% was the
Exit polling is terrible. You should never trust exit polling.
right. I'm
Exit
not sure it's exit polling. I'm sure it's exit polling was actual like polling after the fact.
because like you don't find out like the more accurate polling on the election doesn't come for like 2 years after the election.
Right.
Exit polling that they get the day of the election is notoriously inaccurate. It's just terrible, and you
Mhm.
should not trust it. Like that infamous 43%, I mean 53% of white women voting for Trump. Like that was exit polling. The actual number was like in the 40s. Okay. But that 53% number has been getting thrown around ever since.
Yeah.
Um, Karl Rove of all people said don't trust exit polling because I think it was whether it was 2000 or 2004, the exit polling had Bush losing. Okay, early on.
I mean, but those races were tight though. I mean, so it wasn't far off.
And I think it must have been 2004 that's when he actually got to 51%. But he of all people said don't trust exit polling because exit polling for people who don't know what exit polling actually is. Exit polling is they ask you when you're coming out of the polling place,
Mhm.
somebody comes up to you and asks you like who you voted for, whatever.
You have
Okay.
to trust what they say is accurate, right?
And so imagine if it's hard enough to get people to answer the phone. Now, I may answer the phone to take a poll, but if I'm coming out of the voting place and some jerk comes up to me and says, "Hey man, who'd you vote for?" You know, they might get a they might get a go F yourself, leave me alone. Okay. Okay. Or don't bother me, dude. I'm trying to go home. Right. So I mean, it's just, and again, like the polling is content now, and I've said cable news in particular, they are in the business. They need a tight race. They need they need drama. They need anything might happen. Like that's what they need. They need that in the primaries, and they need it in the general. The absolute worst thing that can happen for cable news is to have, 2012.
A perceived blowout.
Yeah,
Well,
everybody can go to bed at 9:00.
yeah, that's because like 2012, right? Once the dust settled, and I mean, once the dust settled with Obama and Romney, like I guess after the Democratic convention, it was over. I mean, Mitt he had one good debate, and
The first debate, Romney did really well, and in fact, I remember the polling after that first debate that
it
they
shifted,
had Romney was ahead by I think a point,
and then it very soon it went right back because, so that happens sometimes because look, I mean, you get a bump at the convention,
right?
and then if you have a good debate, you might, if you have one, and Romney had one good debate and he got a bump from that, and then it went away.
Right.
And so, but cable news in particular, they need content. Polling is content, and they will, and and I'm not going to say that they don't necessarily put the fix in on polls, but when they get a bad poll, they should just throw out. They don't.
Are there polls you do trust? Like, cause my science of this, I always follow certain polls. Like Rasmussen is probably the most like conservative poll out there. I always take the Rasmussen poll, and I always take the most liberal poll, which is like Quinnipiac, and I kind of take the two and kind of put them in the middle because Rasmussen always sides more conservative. Quinnipiac is more lefty, so I take both those polls and I take the number in the middle, and then that's why I kind of close the numbers at.
Well, see, what I do is see there because there's a couple of people who I follow on Twitter who are more knowledgeable of reading polls and who have campaigned and whatnot. And so what I do is I go see what they have to say about the polls, and therefore, and then I pass judgment on that,
right?
Because to me that's the best thing to do is to find somebody who is honest and who knows what they're talking about,
right?
And see what they have to say about the polls. And so if they come out and say that, okay, this poll looks legit, then okay. So almost every one of these polls that showed Biden in trouble, has been easy to shoot down just from the methodology or from the sample, or by them not revealing what the sample, like the makeup of the polling sample. Or in some cases, you will literally get another poll the very next day that has the exact opposite result. And or like, for example, there was a poll in Ohio of people in Ohio that said the results said that 45% of Democrats were in favor of overturning Roe versus Wade, which is horseshit.
That didn't reflect an election 2 weeks ago, rather.
Exactly, and there is no place in America where 45% of Democrats were in favor of overturning Roe versus Wade. Yeah. Okay, any poll that has that as a result is you should just laugh at and throw out. Okay,
absolutely, I agree with you on that one.
Okay, but these are the same people doing the presidential polling,
right?
So, right, I mean, and look, I mean, anything can happen, right? Especially now, and we're in an era of where like voter suppression is on steroids, and so that can easily just screw up the turnout in swing states if people are not vigilant about that. To me, and look, honestly, that's the thing. If that's the thing to actually be mindful of, not these polls. It's this voter suppression stuff, because if that stuff kicks in Wisconsin, or I think Pennsylvania is safe now because of the governor and all that stuff. I don't think they'll be able to do that there, but someplace like Wisconsin or North Carolina or Georgia, right? I mean, yes, those are places where the voter suppression could tip the election in that state. So I mean, you do have to be mindful of that. But I mean, the political media again, because here's what happened, right? All right, so in so 1996, the election was over before it started between
Oh yeah, Dole and Clinton, right?
yeah. And then, but then in 2000, we had the recount, and it went
Oh
into
God.
December, and it went to the Supreme Court, and so people, and then people were turning to the news every day to see what the hell was going on, right? And then so that's the first little thing you see, like, oh, okay, well this stuff sells. If the election is in doubt or whatever, people are going to turn to our channel to see what's going on. All right, so then that was 2020. I mean, that was 2000. 2004 was close, so again, same thing. And then in 2008, you had like the most nail biter presidential primary probably ever between Hillary and Obama, where they literally had to go and have it settled amongst with the DNC. The people in charge of the DNC had to literally settle the dispute of how the nomination would be decided. Okay, so that was the most nail biter presidential primary, at least in our lifetime, maybe ever. Okay,
Right.
and that got and so people were tuning in every day. So now not just at the general election you want drama now. Oh, we can have drama in the primaries now.
Yeah.
And so what happens in 2016? I mean, in reality, Hillary wiped the floor with Bernie Sanders. If you watch cable news, that's not what you saw though. What you saw is that, oh, Bernie might do it. Bernie might pull it out. Oh, Bernie has a chance. Bernie had no chance. Bernie got his ass kicked from jump. Okay. In 2016, but they didn't.
That's a whole other kind of words. The whole Bernie Sanders.
But
that's a whole other podcast.
That's not the story
right now.
That's not the story they told you. The
Right.
story they told you was that it was close and that Bernie might pull it out and this, that, and the other, and he got the shit kicked out of him. Okay. All right. And so, I'm just see, that's one of my little pet peeves, because I mean, he got the shit kicked out of him, and a lot of people believed that it was really close and that he had a chance, and they believed that the DNC rigged it and all this other shit, and that's not true. He got his ass kicked because he didn't campaign for any black votes, and some black people didn't vote for him. He got the shit kicked out of him. Mm-hmm. All right, that's what happens, and it's documented. All right, his own campaign people were saying, "Hey, man, we need to open some campaign offices where black people live," and and they didn't do that, and he's running against people who have long-standing relationships with black voters, like Hillary Clinton, like Joe Biden, and so he got the shit kicked out of him. All right, I'm just going on a rant there because people need to. I'm never going to let that go, because you had people all the way up to the damn election day talking about it was rigged. It was rigged. They screwed Bernie. That's why I'm not going to vote for Hillary, because they screwed Bernie. Hillary cheated. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, and that's one of the reasons we got stuck with Trump, you jackasses. All right, and I'm sorry, I'm not letting it go. I'm not letting that go.
So you're saying that a lot of it is more theater than actual reality?
Yes.
In terms of for Bernie, for example, the Bernie thing.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. It was, and it was absolutely theater. And he had zero chance. I mean, once people actually started voting, he had zero chance.
Because someone who's a Bernie supporter is going to say, well, you're probably just an established Democratic voter who votes for the Joe Bidens and the Hillary Clintons in the world, and
you're damn right I am. You're damn right I am.
Did you own that, right?
I have no problem with that. I wear that jersey. I have no problem with it. That's not an insult to me. You can't. Look, if you think you're going to insult me by calling me that, you got another thing coming. All right. Okay. You are. I'm sorry. Hey, that does not bother me one bit. Okay?
I admire the authenticity of that statement. I really do.
Because I mean, look, if you want somebody who's not establishment, then damn it, they need to go win the damn election. Okay, it's that simple. If you don't like Nancy Pelosi, being the Speaker of the House, then you know what? Then somebody, one of these quote unquote younger people should have challenged her for the position. And
the argument for them is that they say it's rigged against them no matter what.
But it's not.
Okay.
Because you're a fucking idiot if you think it's rigged. Okay, you can't rig.
It's easier to cry foul than it is to admit that you lost.
No, fair point.
Okay, okay. Look, first of all, you don't have a national primary. You have 50. It's more than 50 because some states have a primary and a caucus. So you don't have a national primary. You have 50 some different contests. All of them got different rules. Every state has its own rules for how you can be registered to vote in the primary. You cannot rig the process because it's too damn complicated. Okay, you can't rig all those separate things. Okay, because I mean you got to literally have like campaign operatives in every state, and no primary campaign has that type of organization in every state because nobody has enough money to do that. Okay, you staff up big in the states that are important to the winning the primary. Okay, Pennsylvania, Georgia, South Carolina, Florida, Michigan, Maryland, California, Massachusetts, New York. All right, you staff up big in those states, and you win those states. And the only exception to that was 2008 because Obama again had the best primary campaign organization ever in the history of politics.
Oh God, yeah.
Because
that grassroots run was sick.
They calculated down to the very okay, we don't this is how much we need to get in Pennsylvania. We're not going to win Pennsylvania, but this is how much we need to get. And they went and they got it, and then they racked up all the small states because and then they got the black vote, which would have gone for Hillary, flipped to him basically because he's black and he was viable. Okay, because those same black people didn't vote for Al Sharpton in 2004. Okay, they voted for John Kerry in 2004. Okay, but they saw Obama was the real thing, and hey, this guy can actually win the election. So we're going to actually get behind him. Okay. And they knew that, and they played it perfectly, and that's how they were able to pull out the win over Hillary in 2008. Bernie didn't do that, and Bernie counted on people to vote who don't actually vote in primaries. And
that's interesting. That's actually interesting you say that. So I asked you guys this then, given because like this is the thing with me. I work at a job where I work with a lot of employees, with a lot of customers, and we talk politics all the time. And I have to say, Joe Biden is not very, even with Democratic support, Joe Biden's not popular. So, do you recognize that Joe Biden probably not viable? Maybe. I mean, do you recognize that Joe Biden is concerned about Joe Biden, whether it be his age, maybe it be policy, maybe the gaps? I don't know. Do you think that's all smokescreen? Because I hear too much of that from actual voters to ignore that on the ground. Forget this polling. It's all like people I talk to on a normal basis, and you're talking about like tens, hundreds of people I talk to, a lot about this stuff, and it's even from voters who are left leaning are concerned.
Well, when they actually have to vote, and there's Biden on one side, there's Trump on the other. And the reality is, if you don't vote for Biden, Trump will win the election, and Trump will be in office. And Trump has already vowed to, he's going to put people in jail, and he's going to execute people. He's actually said he's going to do this kind of thing. And you see that, they put Supreme Court justices on the Supreme Court to overturn Roe versus Wade. And when you see
that backfired politically anyway.
And when you see, these other people in office, I mean, like this Speaker of the House he's not just a MAGA true believer. He's a, right-wing Christian conservative true believer.
Mike Johnson. Yeah.
Johnson. And who thinks, that, gay people are going to hell and all this kind of stuff. He's one of those type of folks. I mean, the reality is if Biden does not win re-election, that's who's going to be in charge. Okay, and
the problem is also you have the squishy middle independents, NPAs, who are saying, "Yeah, but my wallet was better 4 years ago on the Trump." I'm not making a case of Trump. I'm not saying
was it really?
No, I'm not saying. I'm telling you what was being said.
It's a disingenuous argument, and people
agreed. Jim, I agree with you.
They're lying to themselves because
people saying,
but here we are. We're sitting here with the lowest national average gas price, and that has nothing to do even with the president, but people think it's
true.
The lowest national average on gas prices at Thanksgiving since 2019. Okay, so like, all right, so who did that then, right?
Yeah,
what administration is creating jobs? I understand there was a pandemic, but there was also a guy who can't read a meeting report to understand what the pandemic is that's coming and to be prepared for it. So I think there is a bit of smokescreen there with it. Like a lot of the things that they're saying about Joe Biden going into 2024 is the same stuff they were saying in 2020. And
but the difference is that we now have a Joe Biden, 4 years of, or 3.5 years now, or 3 years of Joe Biden now to run on against. If you disagree with, like, if you believe that the inflation is his fault, which honestly it isn't, because we will still be here with Trump as president. Put it away. I'm telling you right now.
Oh, absolutely. And I would argue that would probably be worse. But again, it's global inflation. It's not even just here in the US.
Right.
But the other thing that isn't being measured, and of course it's not being measured by Fox, but it's also not being measured by MSNBC or CNN or any of these other places that are theoretically liberal fake news, right? That's the thing we always heard for 4+ years with Donald Trump, is we also have had 4 years of Donald Trump becoming increasingly more dangerous in his rhetoric, and increasingly, and the more that the walls cave in on him legally, we're seeing him become more and more unhinged, and we're going to have another year of that. Like this dude's already telling us what he's going to do. Like it's not even hyperbole anymore. It's not even people giving their opinion about what they think a Trump presidency, if reelected, might be. He's literally going in front of his speech crowds and telling us what he's going to do if he's reelected. So it's not even liberal fake news as the Trumpers like to tell us. It's literally what the man is telling us he's going to do. And he is, in his first 4 years, had set up to do. So, like, yeah, people can talk. People can be, I'm not happy with Biden. But again, you got to walk in there and you got to make a choice. Is it Biden and my rights, or is it literally the potential to change the fabric of what this country is?
Or is it RFK Jr.? Because
no, it's not.
No.
No, it's not.
But again, But I agree with you. But again, the rhetoric is out there.
Here's the deal, man. I will actually be shocked if he actually stays in this thing until November of next year.
Well, that's the thing. I'm skeptical of too. Will he be on the ballot by the time we get to November next year?
I don't think he will be. I think this is him just trying to, pad his pockets and make a little bit of a name for himself and get attention on himself. Also, keep in mind, again, the day we're recording this is 60 years to the day that his, that his uncle was murdered. So, when you're talking about I think he is just it's all about getting eyes and getting money on him. He's a Republican in Democrats' clothing. He rides on his family name, but that firecracker is going to wear itself out, and I don't think he's even going to be. You don't think
it's a thirst though? Like
no.
I think it's a thirst of third party though.
No. I don't.
No. The one there's only been one third party candidate who got any type of
Ross Perot.
And Ross Perot bought primetime television time. Okay. He bought the time. That's how he got on television, because he bought it because he had enough money to buy television time on all three major networks. RFK Jr. does not have that type of money. And so he is very much an internet thing, and to actually sustain a campaign, he does not have the funding to do that. He definitely doesn't have the funding to buy himself primetime television. And also, when he actually, if you actually ask him about his views, he's like a crazy anti-vaxxer, and a whole bunch of other stuff.
Which I find is dumb on his part, because look. Say what you want about the anti-vax thing, whatever. Like,
they're
he would gain more traction if he actually give out his policy ideas.
Well,
outside of that,
anti-vaxxers are idiots. Let me just say that point. Like, if you're an anti-vaxxer and you're listening to this podcast, don't get mad at Ernest. Get mad at me. I'm calling you an idiot.
No, you get mad at me too. You are an idiot.
You can get mad at me too, because you can go fuck yourself.
Right.
If that's who you are.
Period in the story. Okay. I'm not. No. Okay. Because every last one of these people who was anti-vaxxer today has already been pumped full of vaccines.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're born into it.
And okay, but anyhow, no, the third party stuff is bullshit. People express interest in a third party because they just, yes, because there's reason to be dissatisfied with both parties.
Sure.
And every election, it's always, it's always going to be one or the other. But our political system cannot handle, first of all, a viable political party. I mean, you got to have money, you got to have organization, you got to be able to run in every state, you got to be able to cover all that ground. It is just not doable for more than two parties, basically.
No, and you're not gonna change it at the top. Like if you actually want there to be a viable third party, it has to start at the local and state levels, and you have to change the system from the foundation. You're never gonna have a third party change the system at the House, at the Senate, at in the White House. It's just it's never going to happen.
No, I mean it's not. And these third party folks, they never do that. They run some stupid presidential campaign, or they might run for governor or senator or something, and they do, and they wait till they don't do any type of organization up and leading up to it. They come out there either in the election year itself or the year before, and they say, "Hey, I'm running for blah blah blah."
The RFK their people couldn't get a teleprompter to work. Come on, like it's not a serious candidate.
And he's running independent now, so he doesn't even have any primaries to win, right?
Yeah.
Right. So, in a hypothetical scenario, he could do better than expected in some primaries if he were in one of those two parties, and then he could manufacture some momentum, right? If something like that happened, right? But since he's not in on the party, then he can't even get a win in the news now, right? Yeah. Like he can't finish second in Iowa when people thought he would finish eighth, right? Yeah. He can't do that now because he's not in a party. So, I mean, because that's what Clinton did in '92, right? He didn't win the initial primaries, but he kept finishing like second place there. And then eventually that kept him going, and then eventually he started finishing in first place. Actually, that happened with Trump in 2016, right?
Super Tuesday put him over the top. Super Tuesday.
Yeah, and then, but RFK, any third party candidate who's not in a party he doesn't have any victories to get to in January, right? To get his name in the headlines. It's just, and then once people get more serious about it, then he won't be in the papers anymore. And also, I mean, the thing about Biden, like you can claim all types of crazy stuff about Joe Biden, but the thing is, when people actually sit there and listen to him talk, none of the crazy stuff is true.
But you have to sell it to people who are having the doubts. That's the question.
Once they listen to him talk, you find out that the crazy stuff people have been saying is not true.
Rob, I think you're giving people too much credit. Honestly.
Okay.
Is he though? Look at 2020.
I don't think he's wrong. I'm saying that you're giving people credit.
But my point is all the rhetoric, all the crazy stuff about Biden was there before the 2020 election, and look what happened. He smoked Trump,
and also,
and we heard about the red wave in 2018, and we heard about
that's the thing that's throwing me off though. Is that like you say that, and then like you have these people say, "Oh, Biden's in trouble," and then these results will come in, you know,
which is what I've been trying to tell you.
Because here's what happens.
If you're a slave to the polls, then you're gonna like believe what they say. You're gonna panic on what they say. Like, I don't even pay attention to them. I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna walk in that booth. I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do. That's all I can control.
I think what concerns me though is that when I'm hearing people in my own family who are normally politically engaged now telling me that they're not going to vote for Joe Biden next year, and he's all Democrats for the record. And granted, they're not saying they'll vote for Trump, but there's something to be said with a lot of stuff going on here with, the Israel conflict too, especially too, which by the way, the Israel thing is a no-win situation for Joe Biden, because these same people who are pro-Palestine, not going to vote for Biden, which I get on principle, you won't do that. You do realize Donald Trump is, if not worse, on that issue than Joe Biden is, actually.
Okay, now here's the thing with that, though. All right, it doesn't look very good right now, but however this thing gets resolved, it will be resolved by it will not be an issue in October of next year. It will be.
You're hoping for out of sight, out of mind situation might be from now.
Yes, I mean, to be perfectly honest, yes.
You realize how many crises there's going to be between now and then?
Yeah.
The one concern we'll say, though, like, okay, so in Michigan, for example, I think there's over 20,000 Arab Americans that live in Michigan, for example, swing state for the record. Biden won that by only 10,000 votes in 2020. Okay, the rhetoric is that almost none of the Arab Americans that, now obviously could change their mind in a year to come, but the rhetoric is that most, if not all of them, are not going to vote for Joe Biden at all in 2020. So if you go by those metrics, of course, that's a win for Trump, in the assumption that does play out that way.
Well, and that's also the assumption that people are going to go in and vote for Trump if they're not voting for Biden.
But if you don't vote for Trump, though, that still lessens the Democratic vote there.
But if Biden had 10,000 more votes than Trump did, and 20,000 people who voted for Biden don't vote for him, I mean, you're also under the assumption that everybody that voted for Trump is going to do it again and is going to absolutely vote again in 2024.
No, true. No,
you know what I mean? So right. And again, like, to Rob's point, we're a year away. A lot of people can talk. You can talk a really big game 12 months out. And you can look at whatever crisis there is today and how it's going to impact you 12 months from now. Mm-hmm. But man, what was the biggest crisis in November of 2022? You probably can't remember.
Roe v. Wade and the gun control situation, which honestly you could argue was the reason why
but those two things have been an ongoing.
But the undoing of Roe v. Wade, though, the actual undoing of Roe v. Wade happened 6 months prior to that election.
Right. But that was a thing that Trump ran on in 20, that was kind of on his list of agendas in 2016 when he ran.
But that's a fringe issue to the far right, but most 3/4 of the country doesn't want Roe v. Wade overturned.
Exactly.
I understand that, but what maybe I didn't make my point.
What are you gonna say?
Is that the Israel-Palestine thing? Yes, right. It is a big deal now because it's at the forefront of the news. There was something that was a flash, at last fall, that we don't even remember was a thing, right? Mm-hmm. Today. So, like, the thing that the people saying they're not going to vote for Biden because of this conflict, with Israel and Palestine, that's easy to. My point is, it's easy to say a year away.
And let's I'm gonna give you another example. Okay, with a Bush 41. All right, Desert Storm was like the most successful military operation we ever had.
Yeah.
Okay,
correct.
and while that was going on, it went so well that everybody said he was a shoo-in to get reelected. The Democrat.
Yeah, his approval numbers went through the roof, and
the Democrats shouldn't have to. They shouldn't even bother, right? Okay, there's no way he's going to lose. And then Desert Storm wrapped up, and what happened? We had a recession that hit at the most inopportune time.
Right.
Okay, and that torpedoed that did him in, and nobody gave a shit about Desert Storm anymore. Okay, so now, if something really bad happens next summer, then yeah, okay. Or look what happens after Bush W got reelected in 2004. They were serious people, not just right-wing operatives, but they were serious people talking about permanent Republican majority because they had thought that the Republican Party had cracked the code to winning over like moderate voters for the foreseeable future. Okay. And it really did look that way, that they had cracked the code, that they would win over well, I should specify moderate white voters. Okay, and it looked like that.
I'll admit I was one of the Bush voters in the 04 re-election. So
Well, I'm not condemning anybody for doing that. I mean, okay, look, voting for George W. Bush is not like voting for Trump. Okay, it's
no, I agree
not.
with that. 100%.
Okay, but there were serious people thinking that the Republican Party had cracked the code with moderate white voters, and that I mean, not that they would win in blowouts from here on out, but that they would just win these elections for president. They would win. They would keep control of the Senate and all of this stuff because they had cracked the code, and it didn't even take 2 years for everything to go to shit.
Well, because
And
the Iraq War, the WMDs that never came to be, and
but then
all that
Katrina
stuff.
happened,
Katrina happened, of course, and
and
you know
then
it was ripe. It was ripe for a new guy. Obama came in at the right time.
but a lot of those things that happened were a result of the decisions that the Bush administration had made during the first term. Right.
True. Right.
Okay. So I mean, those things were not accidents. The cleanup for Katrina being as bad as it was partially a result of putting Brownie in charge of FEMA. Okay. You know, the WMD stuff going bad was entirely their decision making.
Yeah.
And then the financial crisis again was very much a consequence of some of their decision making. But it took, and then you had a bunch of Republicans in Congress getting hauled off to jail for corruption.
Yeah.
And so it took less than 2 years for all that permanent majority talk to go to shit. So things can happen really fast. And
yeah, it's true.
So look, put it this way. Nothing has happened up to this point that would have me concerned about him getting reelected.
So you feel good about Joe Biden's reelection chances? You do?
I think, but whatever. By the time I think ultimately it will all wash out, and you will have him saying what he says on one side, and you will have Trump saying what he says on the other side. And don't forget, we have all these mass shootings that keep happening. And what happens every time a mass shooting? You see a Democrat saying we need better gun regulation, and you have Republicans saying thoughts and prayers. And people are seeing that over and over again. That don't think that doesn't have an effect on anything. Okay. All right. I mean, because see what's happening now. See, look, the Republicans used to be better at talking in code, and also they used to be better at not letting the crazy people actually be in charge.
Right.
And now the crazy people are in charge, and not just Trump, but people like, Taylor Green and Johnson. And I mean, like those people are in charge now. And they're not, they don't talk in code. They just come out and blurt everything out.
And they also don't talk policy anymore either.
And so, and it's just, it's different now. And look, I'm not saying we'll win a blowout because these things aren't blowouts anymore. Not really. But it's just, I believe that unless if some really bad stuff happens next year, then yes, it's trouble. But if nothing really bad happens next year,
define bad, Rob, for me. What could be a bad thing that could happen between that could actually impact a Biden loss next year?
Katrina, something like Katrina, something like we get attacked, right? And or something like, something where he actually gets named in a scandal, not Hunter. Okay. Right. That something like that. I mean, those type of things. Or if we do have an actual recession where people are out in like food lines all over the place and shit, right? I mean, something like that, right? Not gas prices. Okay. Not that. Okay. Not, inflation. And okay, no, that's not going to do it. All right. Because people, I mean, these people are talking about inflation all the time, and it's just a thing people say on TV all the time now. I mean, and I mean, because even when the prices go down, they're still talking about inflation, right? I mean, so it's almost like empty rhetoric, to be honest. But something substantively, something that's actually substantively bad has to happen. Because remember with Katrina, right? You saw the images on the news where it looked like something out of a dystopian movie or something, right?
Yeah.
And you couldn't escape that. or when
Right.
when the images came out, with Abu Ghraib and
that was COVID for the Trump of 2020. It was COVID.
yeah, like you couldn't escape that, right?
No.
You couldn't escape seeing pictures of, ambulances full of dead bodies, right?
Temporary morgues sitting, tractor trailers that were used as temporary morgues outside of hospitals.
Right.
Jim, let me ask you this quick. Do you feel confident in Biden next year also? Or are you?
I'm with Rob right now. I do. And honestly, because me leading up to 2020, I was nervous about.
I had to calm you down a couple of times, remember?
You did. But the midterms and what happened this year in the elections have given me hope, and seeing again, I look at these voters in their 20s, and look, we're gonna have a bunch of new people that are going to turn 18 between now and next year. And again, to Rob's point, like the more mass shootings and school shootings, and because they're not going away.
Yeah.
I hate to be able to say like, yeah, we're going to have a bunch more mass shootings, but we will, because that's who we are. And the generation that's literally watched their friends get murdered next to them in their schools are the ones that are going, we're tired of this. Again, it's a generation of people that are like, no matter what, I need to have my rights.
Because look, I mean, one thing, because like during when W was in office, we still had the assault weapons ban was still on the books. And there weren't as many mass shootings.
Yeah,
but the assault weapons ban expired while he was in office, and we've all these mass shootings that have just ballooned since then.
Just the irony of the Republicans of today talking about how Ronald Reagan would never regulate our firearms. Motherfuckers, he was the one that initiated the fucking
he's also pro immigration too. Pro immigration as well too.
Yeah.
In Bush.
And let's not forget that Ronald Reagan he became Mr. Gun Regulation when the Black Panthers marched on the State House in California. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, he became Mr. Gun Regulation when he saw the brothers in the State House packing heat. Okay,
yeah.
Let's not forget that. Okay,
barring something unforeseen, sitting here today, less than 365 days away from the election, I am fairly confident that Biden's going to get reelected. Also because I feel like Trump just continues to light his own fuse, man.
I think that's the one thing, though, I think Biden in his pocket is that Trump, he can't keep his mouth shut, dude. He just can't. Nope. And he sounds worse. He's getting worse now, too. It's like, even if you're someone that's kind of squishy in a way where, like, you can go either way. You don't like Trump, you like some of the policies. Trump is starting to remind you of why you didn't vote for him in 2020. It's like, oh wait, now I know why I didn't vote for this guy in 2020.
Here's the thing, and I think the because I've seen the Dark Brandon mugs and the Dark Brandon signs and things, like the Biden campaign is already starting to like lean into like just how crazy Trump's getting. Mm-hmm. And I think that is going to be a very smart thing over the next 12 months is like, everybody talks about Biden losing his mental faculties. But we're seeing it in real time accelerating with Donald Trump. And I think that the Biden campaign needs to really lean into that. And I think they will. And I think that's going to help them too.
And another thing with Biden, Biden's strength is that he's actually a normal dude.
Yeah.
And now that's a weakness when you're running against Obama in the primary, right?
Yes.
Okay, because Obama is this extraordinary politician and all of this type of stuff. You can't be a normal dude and run against Barack Obama. You can, but being a normal dude and running against Donald Trump is a strength. Okay. And also, like all this stuff, people are like, well, Biden senile, Biden this, Biden that. When you listen to him actually talk at length, he's not senile.
And he's doing things too also. Like, you may not agree with what he's doing, but you can't sit there and say he's not doing things. Like, you can't have both ways. You can't say, oh, I like what he's doing, but he's not doing anything. No, he's doing things. You may not agree with it, but he's doing things.
And
infrastructure, the whole nine. He's the most pro-union president we've had in generations.
Yeah, and even and look, with all this stuff going on with Israel and Palestine, our political system has been kind of captive to just making these statements about being, pro-Israel, this, that, and the other, right? I mean,
yeah.
And regardless of of how they actually approach the actual policy on the ground dealing with stuff, but
right.
Just from a rhetoric standpoint, so I understand people being just completely angry and dissatisfied with with the rhetoric that is being said about, supporting Israel and all this type of stuff, because, and that's just, it kind of is what it is. And like, until, you have to get a whole new generation of politicians with a different outlook on that before that rhetoric is going to change. Because we're talking, and look, even us, look, we were taught in school growing up that, Israel are good guys, Palestine are the PLO, right? You're talking decades of people being taught that in school, right?
Yeah.
And it being reinforced on the nightly news, and then politicians of all stripes kind of echoing those same sentiments. That's not going to change overnight. And well, now, I guess one of the positive things about, like social media, the internet and all that, is that there are people on the ground there who are getting out reports and, images of what's actually happening. And so some people are seeing that, like, this, the stories that our governments are being, and our news people are being fed by government sources are not accurate. And people are actually seeing that for the first time now. And so there's, hopefully that will lead to some, change in rhetoric going in the future, and maybe a change in policy down the road as far as how we deal with all this stuff. But then the other thing is, you kind of have to tread lightly the way you talk about this stuff, because you can mean well. If you can have the best of intentions, but you start talking about, holding Israel accountable for their actions or whatever. The problem with that is that you open the door for all the bigots to come sit at the table and grab the microphone. The same way, like, if we talk about, well, we need more accountability in the Black community. Okay, the problem with that is, when we start saying that, and then some racist white guy thinks he can come in there and start, talking Rush Limbaugh kind of talk, right? So you tread lightly when you say things like that, because you don't want to invite those kind of people into the conversation, right?
Yeah.
And so, it can lead to some very kind of frustrating things being said. And that is a source of the frustration or the anger that some people have towards the Biden administration right now, because they have to tread lightly with how they talk about this stuff, because, you cannot invite the people to the table to speak who are anti-Semitic folks, and you don't want people coming to the table to speak who are, or Islamophobes either, to say bad things about Palestinian people, right? You have to manage the situation so that none of those people feel like you're giving them a space to come talk, because they will. And that's ultimately, and it's dissatisfying, right? It is not satisfying to anybody to hear this kind of overly careful kind of rhetoric about the whole thing. But again, that's happening now. It will not be in the news. However it gets resolved, it will not be in the news next year.
All right, we went an hour to that. I'm glad we did that, and I'm sure we're gonna do this again between now and next November, because this is going to be. I know they say this every single cycle, but I really believe this is going to be the craziest election cycle of our lifetime. Just because of the fact that, number one, you have one guy that's literally on 4 charges, 91 counts on 4 charges, running for president. The other guy's 81 years old now. It's insane.
And that guy with 91 counts is 78 years old. Everybody wants to report Biden's age. Let's not forget that Trump is 78 and at least visibly in worse health than Joe Biden is. So if we're gonna talk about one guy's age, let's talk about I mean, Biden bikes how many miles a week? Trump eats how many cheeseburgers a week?
Someone's working.
You know what I mean?
But you guys do agree that Donald Trump will be the nominee for the GOP, right? You agree?
I
with
mean,
that, right?
as long as he's not in prison and literally not allowed to, yeah, he will be.
Yeah,
It's fascinating how big he is, how big in the polls he is at this point. It's insurmountable at this point.
And,
well, because
and
look,
the Republicans have sold their soul to him.
Yeah,
and plus all the other candidates all suck.
Yeah,
I mean, there's nothing. I mean, they don't do anything that they don't generate any type of real excitement.
remember in like late 2021 when like DeSantis was going to be the guy? Oh, boy, has that changed.
Yeah,
and they got nothing else. They got nothing else.
No personality whatsoever. First off,
none. I mean, none of these people. Yeah, I mean, none of them, and a whole lot of them are running for president is like it's a grifting operation.
Right, and that's the problem with Republicans is they have to be a viable Republican candidate right now. You have to follow the Trump rhetoric. So, but most of them, like, either they don't believe it or they're still trying to catch up to whatever level of crazy he is today. So why would you go with the imitation when you could go with the real thing? And if the real thing isn't available and can't even use his voice anymore,
yeah,
then all of these people that were just waiting to see what he said next so they could go, yeah, what he said, but this, they'll have nothing either.
Yeah.
So,
well, one of my buddies is a Trump guy. He goes, Trump's going to start his own party at some point. I'm like, why would he? He has the two major parties.
The Republican Party is his party. Why would
you want to do that for?
Why would he go through the work of creating something different when he's already just taken over what was there?
And
makes
plus
no sense at all.
And plus, he doesn't have the money to do that. He's broke.
Yeah.
There's that too.
I mean, because he uses the Republican Party to raise money, and that's the other thing. He's sucking up all the donor money for his stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's good at this shit though. At least with
he's good at conning people.
Yeah,
he's a businessman. He's a great con man. Absolutely. Yeah. He's been doing it for his whole life.
Yeah.
All right, let's switch gears here now. We give an hour of political talk here. No, I love it. I love it. Survivor Series is a few days away.
Yeah.
Before we get to there, why don't you guys share with me some of your favorite moments in Survivor Series history, Jim?
I think one of my earliest ones that sticks out is the when all the Hart brothers wrestled together in Boston. 93,
yeah,
and that was the start of the Bret Owen feud. Because Bret got thrown into the ropes, knocked Owen, or Owen got thrown in the ropes, knocked Bret off. Owen got pinned. He was the only brother eliminated. Which led to the tag team title match against the Quebecers at Royal Rumble, which led to the WrestleMania 10 match, and then that feud was off and running. Because I was always a Hart guy, so to see Bruce and Keith and Owen and Bret together, and it was cool. Like I was and I always enjoyed the pay-per-views around Thanksgiving, and I think even like back then it was today, the night before.
Yeah.
So that's the first one that sticks up my mind. I mean, in recent years, of course, you had the Undertaker's 25th anniversary, you had the Undertaker's retirement. Unfortunately in the Thunderdome. The Bret Hart, the Hart Brothers stuff is what sticks out first when you said that to me.
I need to watch it again. It's been a long time since I watched that Survivor Series 93. It's been a long time. What about you, Rob?
See, well, I go all the way back to the first one, and so for me, because that was the first time Hogan and Andre were going to be in the ring together since WrestleMania 3.
That's correct.
And that was such a big deal. And so when, and look, the match was laid out perfectly where they didn't get in the ring together until like the big turning point in the match. And then the way that the twist happened, that Hogan got counted out.
Yeah.
And then, Bam Bam Bigelow was left in there with Andre, King Kong Bundy, and the one-man gang.
Yeah.
And he just looked like, dead man walking.
Yep.
And the way he, and then he beats Bundy, and then he barely survives the one-man gang, and then it's him and Andre, and he gets on his feet like, all right, let's go. And he puts up a little bit of a fight, but then Andre beats him, and Andre is the sole survivor. And for me, it's like one of the forgotten parts of that show is after that match is over, like Bobby Heenan and Andre are doing like this promo to close the show, and it's one of the, for me, it's the best promo that Heenan ever did. And because he's animated, he's excited, because Hogan, after the match, Hogan ran out there and attacked Andre, and and Heenan just played off of that, and he was like, "Yeah, you couldn't handle it, could you? It hit you right here."
Oh, it was an amazing promo. Yep.
Yeah, and he's like, you just couldn't take it, could you? And he's like, guess what? Now you're going to have to see him again, right? And for me, that was the best promo Heenan ever did, because
I'm not sure if that promo is actually on the network. I know it was on the original Coliseum home video version, which I used to own. I gotta make sure it's on there. Because that promo, you're right. That promo's amazing.
Because Heenan, he would always say funny stuff and all of that, and to me, like he wasn't funny, that he was dead serious.
Yeah,
and to me, that was the best one he ever did.
Again, it's why we've been saying, we said on the Retro podcast, Rob, with me and DJ weeks ago. This is why he's, to me, the greatest manager of all time. Right there.
Yeah, and it's just, it was just dripping with all the disdain he had for Hogan, but also just glee that he had gotten one up on Hogan. And to me, it was, and so for me, it's going back, it was that one. And look, I enjoyed the brand split stuff that happened the last few years. A lot of people didn't like it. I enjoyed a lot of that stuff. Because we just did a watch along from 2017. We watched Charlotte and Alexa Bliss, and then AJ Styles and Brock Lesnar. And those were just some excellent. There were a lot of excellent matches that came out of the brand warfare stuff. And then yesterday we watched the three-way men's elimination match from 2019 that had like the big showdown at the end between Roman and Keith Lee.
That one.
I never understood like the people that go like, well, why are the brands fighting? Like, who gives like, why is anybody fighting in wrestling? Like,
and they very smartly, the kind of champion versus champion matches that happened every year, they most of the time they very smartly had kept the people apart from each other most of the year.
I always like those, but like, and I remember the one year when they did like a draft a couple weeks before, and people were like, well, why are the guys that are just drafted to SmackDown care about wrestling for SmackDown? I'm like, that in sports there's like a trade deadline near the end of the season, right? Like in the NHL, the trade deadline is like 5 weeks before the end of the year. You think a guy that gets traded from like, hell, case in point with your Washington Commanders, you think Chase Young isn't going to care about playing for the 49ers right now because he played for Washington for the first 10 weeks? Like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, what are we taught? Like, they're now are on the SmackDown brand. Like, that is the brand that traded for them. Why wouldn't they want to win for their new brand? Like, that doesn't, I'm like, the people that like don't understand why somebody just traded to a brand would care about fighting for them are telling on themselves that they're not sports fans.
Right. And like when Clyde Drexler got traded to Houston late in the season.
Yeah.
Right. Because he wasn't going anywhere in Portland anymore. He got traded to Houston to play with Hakeem, and they won the title.
Yeah, right? 2018 when the Capitals won the Stanley Cup, they made a trade that brought a defenseman from the Blackhawks to the Capitals. That was probably, and he was a third line defenseman on the Blackhawks. And he ended up by the end of the year becoming a top line defenseman for the Caps, and was probably the backbone of the reason solidifying that blue line as to why the Caps won the Stanley Cup. He went from a team that was in the dumps to a team that was a possible contender, and it made the difference. And he bought in, and he was all in from day one when he got there. So the brand. I never had a problem with the brand split stuff.
By the way, back to what Rob was saying with the first Survivor Series. My favorite moment of that whole show is how Finkel, the sole survivor.
Yeah,
to me that was the impact, of Andre winning that Survivor Series, and the way he said that.
The Fink was so good.
God, he was so good. To me, honestly, like, and I was asking before we get to the Survivor Series this year. To me, the most impactful Survivor Series, though, honestly, in hindsight, look back now, those late 90s Survivor Series, specifically 96, 97, of course, what happened in 97,
Yeah.
and 98, to me, are the most consequential Survivor Series we've ever had. 96, of course, you had a title change with Sid and Sean, debut The Rock, classic.
Brett and Austin.
That's what I'm saying. That it gets lost because of the Mania match. It gets lost, but that's a great match also too.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then 97, of course, the Montreal Screwjob. We know history of that one. 98, arguably one of the greatest swerves of all time with The Rock going heel and going with McMahon to the tournament. I mean, to me, those Survivor Series to me stick out the most for me. Like I think I appreciate them more now than I did in the moment. But I have to ask you this because go ahead.
Yeah, because you look at the screw job, and I'm not going to go long for him because it's the most talked about thing. But like we've done deep dives on how many things would be different potentially if Brett stayed in WWF.
Oh my God!
I mean, it's insane, and to not be morbid, like, I mean, the path that Shawn Michaels was on, and the fact that if Brett stays and maybe they keep the title on until the Royal Rumble. Like, there's a possibility Shawn's not in the casket match, doesn't get hurt, doesn't have to leave, doesn't get clean. Like,
yeah,
he was not on a good road, man. So like, and the Owen tragedy may not happen. The Bulldog having the trapdoor incident in WCW, which got him back on pills. Like the number of tragedies and some triumphs that came out of that night and the way it went down and all of that is pretty insane if you really start to dig into it.
It's the biggest what if in wrestling history, in my opinion. It really is.
Without question.
Yeah.
To me. Without question.
So anyway, let's get to this year's Survivor Series. Before we get to the Survivor Series. Because that's the one event that I think people go back and forth on. Like, it's a big four. But it feels like the most meaningless big four based on match construction and priorities. And it never used to be that way. I think the 90s, they did it right. Because I remember they've had, you talk about consequential Survivor Series, even 91, when the Graveyard Challenge, Hogan and Taker.
Yeah.
Title change there. So we've had some consequential Survivor Series. I don't know why it's so tough to make Survivor Series matter more. I don't understand why it's been so tough for WWE to do that. I don't understand that. Maybe you have some answers on that.
I think the roster's too big for one.
Yeah.
So like when you start to do the brand supremacy stuff and champion versus champion, like it gives cool moments, but it doesn't have like a ton of impact because the next night on Raw, half the people aren't going to be there.
Yeah.
And so there's nothing to like build off of. Like, when you had the screw job, you were tuning in to Monday Night Raw because, well, what happens now, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't really have that. I mean, last year with the War Games, with the Bloodline and all of that, like you were like, and so that was the first with Triple H with the book. Now this one, you're really ingrained a bit more with Triple H. So I'm curious to see if this one can maybe be a bit more impactful. I enjoyed kind of the Nick Aldis versus Adam Pearce push and pull, and there's some like Raw versus SmackDown stuff, but there's also just Raw storylines and SmackDown storylines. So it's there seems to be a lot more of it that quote unquote makes sense. Again, we're talking about pro wrestling, so it doesn't have to totally make sense, but
right.
Like there's more continuity, maybe is the better word. So we'll see. And it's just SummerSlam's become the summertime WrestleMania. The Royal Rumble's the Royal Rumble, and WrestleMania obviously is WrestleMania. So I think you can make Survivor Series quote more important, but I don't think it's ever going to be anything bigger than the fourth of the big four.
But you could also make it like the way you treat SummerSlam, like the Fall Classic.
Yeah, but it's never going to be a stadium show because it's always around Thanksgiving.
It doesn't have to be SummerSlam. It could be an arena show, but again, the way they treated it in the 90s was perfect.
Right, and that's what I mean. You can make it feel bigger. You can make it feel more important but it's never going to be anything more than the number 4 show.
And then because now I think the calendar has a lot to do with it,
Yeah.
because but the Royal Rumble has, remember, the Royal Rumble was not that big deal
No.
early on. Like the first 3 or 4 years,
No,
it didn't have any bearing on anything.
nope.
Right.
That's
And
92.
yeah, and then so that's become more important, and that's become such a big deal now, and it's a big stadium show now, and that's when kind of the calendar officially starts now. So now, Survivor Series is in November, and usually what happens on every year in December, basically you go into cruise control. I mean, they do a couple of things, but they largely go in. Pro wrestling as an industry largely goes into kind of cruise control in December
Right.
now, not just WWE. So you just, again, and maybe 1 or 2 things happen, but because you're getting through the rest of the year. So the fallout from Survivor Series, there isn't much fallout, and it is kind of just on to the next thing. I mean, like the last, like when Goldberg came back and beat Brock Lesnar, right?
Mhm.
That was a thing where you were like holy shit.
That was
And
2016, right? A
yeah,
couple years
and
ago?
and that actually began a continuing kind of thing that led to a WrestleMania match and all of
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
Last year with the Bloodline thing, I mean, it was great theater, but we still didn't have the next meaningful thing didn't happen for like a whole nother month.
Right.
So it's just, that's kind of the thing. Like, because I mean, the early years of Survivor Series in '87, like I said, we had Hogan and Andre, and that was the kind of the first step leading
Mhm.
up to the main event, with the big match with the referees and all of that.
Mhm.
'88 was where you saw like the first kind of everything's not okay with the mega powers.
Yep.
Right. And then you said '91.
89 was the first one they did actual team names, I think.
Yeah, and then
Hulkamaniacs, the Warriors, Dream
and
Team.
then the Ultimate Warriors match actually closed the show in '89.
The 2 match. Right. And in 90, you had the preliminary match with the winners of the heels and the faces teamed up against each other. So Santana, Hogan, and Warrior against
Yeah, and
yeah.
so, and then also that, I mean, that they formatted the show that way, that they had to end the show with Hogan and Warrior in the ring together was, well, in hindsight, that was also a tell that they weren't too confident in the Warrior.
That's very true. Yep, absolutely.
Okay, because if they had been, they wouldn't have set that up so that they had Hogan and Warrior standing together at the end of the show. It would have been
Hogan
Warrior.
must pose.
Well, it would have been. I mean, Warrior would have finished by himself if
Mhm.
if they had full confidence in him at that point. Because
That's why they say Hogan must pose, not Warrior must pose.
yeah,
Right,
yeah,
I'm saying?
yeah. So those first 3 or 4 years, like that was the actual beginning of the road to WrestleMania.
Right.
So now the road to WrestleMania starts at the Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
And so now, yeah, Survivor Series is just, it's just the last show now, and and it's just it kind of is. It is the calendar, and just kind of is what it is.
It could also be the calendar also of the average watcher of wrestling that, like myself, I'm a perfect example of this. I love wrestling, but there are times where I do check out for a little while, and I typically check out this time of year because number 1, NFL, number 2, college football, number 3, NBA's back. So I got a lot of distractions here. Now you get the Rumble, NFL. By the time Rumble comes around, we're conference championship weekend in the NFL. College football's already over, so I have only NBA to worry about, and I get hyped for Rumble going into Mania. So that could be an opportunity also too, to be fair.
Yeah, and well, because like I said, now it's just again, just the Rumble is the big important day now to start things going to WrestleMania. That's
Absolutely.
And but like you said, all that stuff is true about December, and it's just okay. And look at, because I'm like the numbers nerd, so I do look at things year round, like ratings
you do.
and
Of course you
traffic
do,
numbers
buddy.
and things like that, and I can tell, so I can just tell, I can I can tell you just kind of where the attention span for the audience kind of goes up and comes down
Yeah.
and levels out and all of that stuff. and it's hard to maintain. It's hard to maintain a high level of intensity year round now,
especially with a sports entertainment where like there's no breaks, 0 breaks. It goes on and on and on and on. There's no summer breaks, none of that.
So now, there are point now. There are times during the year where a portion of the audience just says, "I'm taking a break."
Yeah,
y'all are still going to y'all are on TV 52 weeks a year, but right now I'm taking a break. There's a portion of the audience that just does that now.
That's me. That's me right now, actually. To be honest.
And you can even see it like even within the show itself, like on Monday nights during the 3 hours, you can I'm one of those people that looks at the quarter hours. I don't talk about it a lot because it's kind of weird to talk about this stuff all the time, but I'm interested in it because I'm a numbers guy. But so you can even see where, at what points during the 3 hours on Monday night where a portion of the audience just says, okay, I'm taking a break here.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm done for the night. And so it's just maintaining that for the whole year, for 12 months, where you have a pay-per-view every month. And also remember, in the early days of Survivor Series, there were 4 pay-per-views. So, you wanted to pay attention to this big show in November because you weren't getting another big show for a while after that.
And you weren't getting the weekly TV other than Prime Time and Superstars, and half those matches were jobbers. So, yeah.
Right. So you weren't like now they're not having a pay-per-view in December, but they had one in October, they had one in September. So they already, and they had one a few weeks ago. And
right.
I'll say this will be number 2 in November.
Yeah. So now,
right.
So now, you didn't, back then you had SummerSlam in August, and then you didn't have anything until Survivor Series.
Nope.
Now, like I said, this year alone, we had Payback, we had Fastlane, we had Crown Jewel, right? All before, so this is just the 4th show, and since SummerSlam, and they're doing the War Games, but and I'm going to predict that within a few years they're going to go back to either the 5-on-5 or the brand warfare stuff, because the War Games will eventually become like a rote kind of thing after a few years.
Yeah, I agree.
You do it for a few years, and then you got to switch up the format because it just does. Because eventually, people will get a little too hip to the fact that, these groups just happen to be forming in November,
Yeah, exactly. You're right.
All
right.
But anyway, let's do, because we can do this all night. I know.
Yeah, of course. All right, let's get to the matches. So it's 5 matches here. Quickly, Carlitos versus Santos Escobar. Predictions on that one?
Santos got to win. You can't do the turn and have him do that promo that he did and then have him lose.
Yeah, he needs it. Santos.
All right, and then I think this match came up like last minute there. Gunther against The Miz for the IC title, right? Did it start?
Officially,
right?
You've been seeing this kind of develop for, I'd say, 3 weeks to a month-ish. You've seen it kind of a slow face turn a bit for The Miz, and I think some of the interview stuff they're doing and Gunther taking shots on The Miz, like the wrestler versus the social media star type of deal. It's I've enjoyed, but it's not. It was only made official, I think, last week, but it's been building.
Right. So still Gunther though, right?
Yeah. I love The Miz, but he ain't the dude to end it.
Yeah.
I think Gunther does win, although I think they've done a good job of sowing just enough doubt.
Yeah, for sure.
And I don't think necessarily that whoever Gunther loses to is going to be some new guy to get a lift from it. It may just be somebody who is a worthy opponent.
And honestly, not that it will happen, but The Miz is credible enough to do it.
Yeah,
especially with that title.
Well, we did a ranking on this on my retro podcast. I believe The Miz came in number 2 all time.
Yeah,
as a champ.
He's one of the best Intercontinental champions.
Yeah, and so again, because that's one of my little pet peeves about like ending streaks or ending long title reigns. It just needs to be somebody who's worthy. This whole hang up of, it needs to be somebody new to get a lift or whatever. No. It needs to be a worthy person, and Miz is a worthy person.
Here's the thing. If it's a 1 month, U.S. title reign, and you want to see what Johnny up and comer has to if he can get any fire under him from it, fine. But like Gunther's reign, Roman's reign, like I mean, almost like Seth's reign's kind of getting into that territory now with
a little bit, yeah.
With this title. Like you need to have somebody that's believable to end that reign.
Yeah, agreed. All right, how about Rhea Ripley versus Zoe Stark for the women's world championship?
Oh, you can bet the house on that one.
Yeah, that's Rhea. Like I love Zoe Stark, and I think she's going to be great. But no, this is mommy's house, man.
She's so fun. I love her. All right. Women's War Games match. We got Bianca Belair, Charlotte Flair, Shotzi, and Becky Lynch versus Damage Control of Bayley, Asuka, Io Sky, and the returning Kairi Sane. I kind of like Damage Control here. I know why.
Well, I think it goes one of two ways. Either this is either they lose, and then this is where things start to turn bad for Bayley, or they win. I mean, because Shotzi is right there to take the pin. I mean,
right.
If Damage Control went, that's kind of why Shotzi's there. If it happens that way, so we'll see.
Are we anywhere close to a Bianca heel turn yet? Are we still
no?
Okay.
Okay, look, Jane Cena. Okay, get used to calling her that. Okay.
Yeah, Jane Cena. Yeah, that makes
okay.
sense.
I mean, I didn't come up with that. I've heard other people but get used to calling her that. I'm not saying they'll never do it, but she is John Cena of this era. She is the superhero to the kids.
Oh, and the Bianca Montez TV show's coming out soon, I believe.
February,
right?
I believe.
Yeah, you're not getting a heel turn when you have a TV show coming.
It's not yet. Yeah.
Well, not and she's who else on that roster is the superhero to the kids? Other than Cody. It's her and Cody.
Female.
And there's nobody. Nobody on that roster, on the female roster, is the superhero to the kids. To the kids.
No, and the only because here's the thing. I think one thing that's going to come, whether it happens Saturday or Saturday's the true beginning of the end of it. I think Bayley's going to be on the outs here with Damage Control much sooner than later, and I think we're going to see Bayley go face.
Ooh.
But like you can't go back to Bayley hugs and Bayley buddies.
No, that's too extreme.
Like she can be a face, but it is going to be something completely different than what we had before. So like even a face Bayley, as big as she is not going to be like a superhero. So yeah, I'm with Rob. But yeah, you take some of
the heel tendencies also. You take some of the heel tendencies of Bayley and bring us a face. You could bring some of that.
Yeah, like it's going to be like a face with an edge, sort of a deal.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah. And
like a good guy that's seen some shit.
Yeah, and that's exactly, and that's there's no reason to turning Bianca heel is something that people on the internet talk about, and
it's the same thing with Cena. But to the prediction, I think that Bianca, Charlotte, Becky, and Shotzi, I think win, and I think we do see I do think we see the official, Bailey's out. Yeah.
Right. All right. Finally, the last match, the men's War Games match. You have Cody Rhodes, Seth freaking Rollins, Jey Uso, Sami Zayn, and the returning Viper, of course, Legend Killer, Randy Orton, versus Judgment Day of Damian Priest, Finn Balor, Dominic Mysterio, and Jamie Dunne, and Drew McIntyre. So Drew's supposed to be a heel now, officially.
Yeah. He's the unofficial fifth member or unofficial sixth member, I guess, almost.
Right.
So,
But I love that Drew got turned. I love that they turned Drew to a heel. I love it. I think it's great.
Yeah. I think it was
refreshing. It's good. I guess my only question is this: Does Randy turn?
Bro, his shirt says "strike first." Of course he turned.
The question is it that night though, or do you let it burn a couple of weeks?
I think I think he's going to give Jey Uso an RKO. Ooh. Definitely. Because they panned to Jey looking scared when Cody said who it was, because
he looked scared and not thrilled.
Great TV. He's so good on TV, for the record, Jay. He gets it, dude.
yeah, and
You and Jimmy both. Like, let's be honest, man. Part of the whole purpose of this Roman run is to elevate those guys and prepare the next chapter of that family, and it has done its job in time and time again.
Yeah. And just to throw a little tidbit of ratings nerdery stuff here, sending Jay over to Raw actually been a big factor, because things were getting stagnant running Judgment Day versus Seth, Cody, Kevin, Sammy every week, and it was showing up in results, right? That it was getting stagnant, not just people's opinions. And so sending Jay over there absolutely turned that around and revitalized that whole thing.
Right. I guess one question before we get out of this segment here. CM Punk. The show's in Chicago. Do we see him? Percentage of chances we see him. Let's put it that way.
Less than 5.
Oh wow.
I would say less than 50. I would say do not get your hopes up. Would I be surprised? No. But you should not get your hopes up here. You should not hang your hat for this show on him showing up. I just because I just wouldn't. I would not. If he does come in, I think the best bet is Royal Rumble, and then because look, if he comes back there, he's coming in at 30 and he's winning. Okay, okay, but I don't.
Look how quick he scorched the earth in the company that was the thing that saved pro wrestling for Phil from Chicago, right?
Yeah.
Like, now granted, I think a lot of that is the inmates are running the asylum, over there, and you're not going to have that in WWE.
No.
And especially now with the UFC tie-ins and the new ownership groups and all of that, like, I think there is a renewed potential for multiple reasons for him to return. However, I think WWE also has to be smart, and I think if you're going to do it, I think it's hey, we're going to try this for about 2.5 months, and we're going to see what happens, and we're going to see how both sides feel. And I think it is that sort of a situation, Rumble to Mania, and then we reassess. Here's the deal, man. There's money to be made in CM Punk becoming a WWE Hall of Famer one day too.
Yes.
So getting him back in the door and having one last run where there's 2 nights of Mania. He can easily get his WrestleMania main event.
Lots of room there.
Yeah.
Sure, lots of room there.
The thing that he didn't get, the thing that broke his little heart before, like, you can easily get it because, you can still have Roman versus Cody or whoever it's going to be on night 2, and Phil could get night 1, and everybody goes home happy, man.
I will say that the reason why I think this will work with Punk if he goes to WWE is because they don't need him. They don't need him.
No, they don't. He needs, if he wants to write a better final chapter,
he needs that more
to CM Punk in pro wrestling. He needs the WWE.
Right.
Yeah.
And getting it and people saying that, well, they don't need him. Why should they get him? That's exactly why you get him.
Exactly. Yep. Because
you can. Johnny
can.
Gargano, I think on one of his Twitch streams the other day, had a great answer to the question about CM Punk, and he goes, "Whatever gets more eyes on our product."
Yep.
Yeah,
like,
that's right.
CM Punk's money. Like, is he as big of a draw as he was when he wrestled The Undertaker at 29? No. And that's partially because of time, and that's partially because of his own doing. But I guarantee you, a lot of these never going to watch the Fed again guys, you hear Cult of Personality ring out a Royal Rumble, all of those never going to watch WWE again folks are going to be watching on Monday Night Raw, the night after Royal Rumble, because they love Phil. and they will follow Phil.
Speaking of Survivor Series, AEW Collision going 3 hours on Saturday to combat Survivor Series. Now this might be we live at Tony Khan and rightfully so, but this is also gonna be a Warner Brothers thing too. Also, I don't know.
It probably is.
Probably.
It more than likely is a TV network thing. What's coming on? Is there something coming on Friday that they're running that night, or?
Well, Friday's Black Friday. I mean,
aren't they running like 24 hours of Elf? Isn't that why they're doing it? I'm not trying to be a jerk.
No, you might be right. You might be right.
I think I did see something the other night when I was watching hockey that they're doing I don't know if it's on TBS or TNT, and quite frankly, I can't keep track of which channel which show's on anyway. But
I gave up.
There may be some sort of holiday movie special because it's Black Friday. So yeah, it could be a network decision. I mean, here's the deal: that you're going to get they're going to get a small audience of people that don't watch WWE, that don't watch college football, that will tune into Collision and Rampage and whatever fashion it's going to be. But the optics are going to look terrible when you see and again it's a holiday weekend. It is a weekend where some people are going to start traveling back home. It's I know Florida State plays in prime time.
Yep, I'll be watching
on Saturday. I'm not sure what other games are in prime time this weekend. It's the Survivor Series. Like, there's not going to be a lot of eyes on this show. So
yeah, and
I will say to their credit that like they're not advertising it as watch us instead of Survivor Series. It's just like, okay, they're doing a third hour.
Wait, you still got 2 more days, man. Tony Khan.
Well, that's true.
I mean, don't give that to he has 40 hours to pull on his ass.
Jacked up on cocaine and Mountain Dew on Thanksgiving night. Maybe he'll start hitting the Twitter machine. But as of now, they haven't drawn.
No, they have not done yet.
They haven't started war yet.
Yeah. Because I think because all right, well, Rampage is so basically they're just moving Rampage to Saturday, right? Basically,
yeah. They're taking the 1 hour Friday, move to Saturday. That's what they're doing pretty much.
Okay, because I mean, Rampage being on an island by itself for an hour on Friday at 10 o'clock would probably be worse than actually having it after Collision on Saturday.
Right.
So I think, I mean, if you look at the bigger picture, it's not, I don't think it's really a bad decision. It's just, again, look, they're going to get killed. They're going to get laughed at. The optics are going to be bad. Yes. Okay. But I'm going to go ahead and say that it's probably a better idea to do that because, because look, you're more likely to get people to stick around for 1 more hour for Rampage than to actually stop doing something else and turn to Rampage on Friday.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's, I mean, yeah, I mean, so once you get past kind of the laughing at Tony and all of that, it's really not that bad of a decision. And yes, people are going to laugh at them. They're going to point at the ratings, just like they did it last Friday.
They're doing Wizard of Oz and Polar Express. So they're doing holiday movies on.
Okay, so yeah,
and, leading to the holidays, man.
Yeah, and it's just so I think it'll prove it's a better decision. And then Eric Bischoff has often said when the network says jump, you got to jump.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, and that's whether and it's just I think it's see now it's funny because AEW now is on the opposite side of the kind of the cool to talk about them coin.
Those days are over now, buddy. Yep, those days are over.
And so what happens is, look, and the perception often doesn't match the reality in that case. Because look, I mean, when they started and people, it was in vogue to shit on WWE. WWE wasn't as bad as people were making it out to be at the time. And so I'll go ahead and say that when we look back on this, I don't think AEW is as bad right now as people are saying it is. It's just it's cool to shit on them right now. I mean, now look, there are some things that are bad, but there's bad stuff on every wrestling show. It just is what it is, right? I mean, just depends on what your brand of you know, how bad the shit is to you, right? But I think, look, ultimately, I don't think it's not that big of a deal. I think it's the right decision, and they'll do better with it that way than if they just had Rampage out there by itself on Friday.
Right. I want to some comments here, saying on AW, from one Maxwell Chicken Freeman. He actually weighed in about Hulk Hogan, our favorite wrestler of all time. Well, one of mine anyway. He was asked about why Hogan gets so much hate from the wrestling community, and I thought his answer to this question was actually perfect. The best answer I've heard from a wrestling star of any genre I've ever heard. Here's the quote here. When asked why Hogan gets hated as much as he does, he says, quote, because he's a liar and a racist. Doesn't change the fact that he was the massive draw, and the professional wrestling business will never be the same because of him, for the better. But there are plenty of professional wrestlers that did the great business. Doesn't mean they're great people. Dude, I've not heard a better answer than that, and more concise and honest than that answer.
I mean, show me the lie.
I mean, and as someone like myself who's conflicted Hogan, because I was, I'm still a massive fan of Hulk Hogan, the persona, Hulkamania. He's the reason I got into wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
I followed the guy when he turned heel in '96 on NWL because he was Hulk Hogan, and to come to terms with a lot that we know, provable to, because remember, it's on record, things he said, and I get it. Like, between all the politicking and all that stuff he's done, obviously, too, but I just thought this response here by MJF was perfection. Leave no stones unturned there, really, honestly. Jim?
Yeah, I mean, the one I guess refreshing thing, because it is easy to crap on a lot of stuff that AEW does. The one refreshing thing that AEW does and AEW wrestlers do is when they get out in media and they get answered questions is Tony doesn't really get to control what they say. Sometimes to the good, sometimes to the bad. Where WWE, even when Hogan made his like return to WWE in like 2015, like it was still very much like, there was a lot of superstars that were like, keep him at arm's distance, but like the company's told us he's back, so you kind of have to just like do what the company says. Whereas like in AEW here, like MJF has the ability to say it like it is, which is a good thing. So yeah, I mean, my take on Hogan, and because it is complex, because most people that grew up in the late 80s and early 90s loved Hulk Hogan. It was hard not to, right? And now we're presented with knowing who Terry is. So it's kind of like you love Hulk, but you hate Terry. And, so when MJF answers that question, I mean, obviously, he's speaking about Terry through Hulk, and I have no problem with it, because he's told us who he is as a person. And we know from stories and things like that, he's a politicker. He's a bit of a con man. He's a certifiable liar.
He's not got lies like fucking like habitual
liar.
Yeah.
And definitely is a racist. So I love that MJF said it, and said it, didn't try to sugarcoat it.
Fits his character too, also, be honest with you, MJF.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rob. I got a lot to say on this subject.
I guess to me the Hogan stuff isn't really that complicated to me, right? I mean, like everyone my age, I was Hulkamaniac when I started as a wrestling fan. I have no problem watching that stuff from back then. I'm not conflicted in the least. I'm not conflicted in the least watching any of that stuff from back then. I have no use for him today, but as far as what MJF said, yeah, I mean, it's spot on. But then at the same time, if MJF comes to WWE and they're still doing business with Hogan, he's going to play nice with Hulk Hogan. If Hulk Hogan,
yeah,
and if Hulk Hogan were to go, if Tony were to bring Hulk Hogan over to AEW, MJF would play nice with Hulk Hogan.
Hey, look, that's been rumored already. So,
So I
Don't
mean,
rule it
it's
out.
just, I mean, it's easy for him to say that today because the guy's not there and he's not in the guy's presence, and so he doesn't have to equivocate or play nice or whatever. So it's very easy for him to say that stuff now. And looking as far as like all the politicking and all of that stuff, I mean, when you get to where he was, guess what, pal? Guess what, folks? People don't get there. People don't stay there in that position just because they worked really hard and and on merit or whatever. You
Right.
have to. Yes, there is backstage fighting to get your position and to maintain your position. He did it better than he did it more successfully than everyone else.
Right.
Which is, I mean, a lot of the reason that he gets a lot of crap for it. I'm not saying he shouldn't get any crap for it, right? I mean, ultimately, you own the decisions you make as far
Yeah,
as that type
absolutely.
of stuff. I mean, you own it, right? It's what you did. But in that business, if you're going to get on top and stay there for more than 5 minutes, then you ultimately you do look out for number one, and you do protect yourself at all times, and you don't give up anything that ultimately won't come back and help you later,
Right.
because that's the nature of that business.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's a dishonest, dirty business, and I mean, it's easy to forget that today because nowadays you have so many people. You have so many people who grew up. Well, I was a fan growing up, and then I always wanted to be a wrestler, right? You have more of that now, right, than ever before.
Yeah.
But back, I've said before, like those people, those guys that were wrestling back in the 80s, most of them didn't want to be there.
No.
I mean, being a pro wrestler was a career of last resort. It was something you did because everything else because nothing else worked for you. Or it was either that or, your dad was a wrestler already and you were following in his footsteps, or, you were working as a bouncer somewhere and somebody who was in the business saw you working as a bouncer and said, hey, I can get you a job making more money than what you're getting bouncing here. Why don't you come with me?
Right.
I mean, that's what it was, right? You didn't have people, growing up all their life wanting to be a wrestler back then. A lot of those guys were not happy to be there. And it was a total mercenary business. You were out for yourself. And Rowdy Piper, I mean, he very famously did not cooperate during his matches with Hogan.
Oh no.
And he was very open, and he was very just straight up like, look, I mean, the way Hogan's matches goes, the guys get buried. You're not going to fucking bury me. And he was not very cooperative during their matches on purpose. All right. That's how the business was back then. And I'm not calling it right or wrong. And look, shoot, in 2023, we saw CM Punk lose the political game.
Yeah.
That's what happened. He lost the political game. Whatever, all this other stuff, that's basically what happened. If he had won the political game, then even with the fighting and all the stuff backstage, he would still be there, and the Bucks wouldn't be there, or Hangman wouldn't be there if he had won the political game. He did not win the political game. That's why he's not there anymore.
Right.
Okay. That's how the business is. And so on that, I mean, it's just again, I mean, Hogan, like I said, he owns the stuff that he did. But I'm not going to give somebody a medal, even if what they say, everything they said was absolutely correct. I'm not going to give them a medal for saying it if they're saying it under circumstances where it's very easy to say that right now, which I think it is.
Right.
Like for example, I'll give you an example. like Chris Brown. I don't know a Chris Brown song. I've never been a fan of Chris Brown. It's very easy for me to say, well, I don't mess with Chris Brown. Chris Brown does nothing for me. I'm boycotting Chris. It's easy for me to boycott Chris Brown because I never listened to him anyway. Right? Okay.
Now I'm forced to ask Jim. Do you know who Chris Brown is?
I know who Chris Brown is.
Okay, cool. Carry on, Rob.
It's just I mean, I know who he is, but I don't listen. I've never listened to his music anyway, so it's no big deal for me to to not listen to boycott Chris Brown. I mean, it's very easy for MJF to say this stuff about Hulk Hogan right now because Hulk Hogan isn't there for him to have to deal with.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right, so let's get you out of here, man. It's a long show today. We had a good time. Little NFL talk. Let's start to Rob first. Your Commanders. You ready for the rebuild?
Oh,
massive
anyway.
rebuild. I think it's coming. I think it's gonna be a massive rebuild, like top to bottom.
Okay, so here's the thing. All right, we feel pretty good about the quarterback, and he's on his rookie contract, so we at least got another 2 or 3 years not having to pay him that much.
Right.
And we feel pretty good about him. We like our receivers. Our running backs are fine. We like our defensive line, even after trading the guys away. But the offensive line stinks. Secondary stinks. Okay. Linebackers stink. Defensive coordinator stinks. Rivera, I don't think, I think he was the right guy when they hired him, but I think they've gone about as far as they're going to get with him, so I think he needs to go too. Yes, I think we're going to get a complete coaching staff and front office blowout. They might keep being to me, maybe.
Yeah.
But maybe not. And then we got a bunch of holes on the roster that need to be filled, so it's about time. And glad Snyder's not there because Snyder would have totally blown it. It appears that the new ownership folks are more competent about that type of stuff. So I'm here for it. And look, rebuild doesn't have to take that long if you do it right. You're not stuck. Rebuild doesn't take 5 years if you do it right. I mean, rebuild can be 2 years if you do it the right way. I mean,
true.
So
Very true. Yeah. Weather Rivera is gone. I did a thing with my buddy Kyle on the show on yesterday, I think it was, coaching panic meter. Ron Rivera, I went at 10 because I think it was always assumed that this was last year no matter what, because you bring in Eric Bieniemy to be assistant head coach, and now with the new ownership group, I just think it's too obvious now. And with the season going on now, barring them going to the playoffs, win a playoff game, like he was dead man walking anyway.
I fire him anyway if they made playoffs because
yeah.
I mean, coaches have made the playoffs and gotten fired. I mean,
and here's the thing, like, I mean, just it feels like this ownership group, the new ownership group, actually is upset about the fact that this season has gone worse than expected.
Right.
Which, I'm not telling Rob anything he doesn't know. But Dan Snyder didn't give a shit. So that's a positive sign as well, because I mean, we've seen it. I mean, Detroit, we've seen it. I mean, look at Houston this year. There's some other examples. Yeah, turnaround is not going to take generations like it used to.
No,
you can make moves and bring guys in and very quickly make adjustments that can improve a team very fast.
Very true. Very true. All right, for one more thing we got out here. This is on Jim's end now. We saw, big Cowboy fan, of course. We saw a reconciliation actually on Sunday between one Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson. Here's the official announcement we heard yesterday on NFL Fox this past Sunday.
For the time we had together, and I want you to know something. On December the 30th of 1923, you're going in the Dallas Cowboy Ring of Honor. Yeah, I hope it's 2023. 2023. Well, it is 2023. I know you want to get this real clear. Okay, 3 weeks from now. 4 weeks from now. Let me just say this.
Jerry can't get the fucking year right. What a fucking clown.
I mean, at least he didn't say glory hole live on Fox.
Right. No, dude.
That word.
By the way, I think I saw Rob throwing up there as I played that.
Oh man, it's just Cowboys. Yeah.
Well, us three, all NFC East guys here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at least you ain't as bad as me, my team anyway. But anyway, Jim, your thoughts on this? This is a long time coming, about damn time. Maybe good karma for the Cowboys now for Jerry to probably do this.
Yeah, I mean, first off, this is, 25 years overdue. I mean, look, I understand that Barry Switzer was the man in the chair for Super Bowl number 3, but Jimmy Johnson won 3 Super Bowls for the Dallas Cowboys. Let's be honest about it. Helped. I mean, changed that franchise from a 2 and 13 at that time. I think they played 15 games when he took over.
I mean, Jimmy, no one. No,
2 Super Bowl champions.
Yeah, right.
And with him and Jerry changed football. Like they took 4 picks that they got from the Herschel Walker trade and turned them into about 37 picks over 4 years and build a dynasty off of it. Like, so yeah, this was long overdue. Jerry's been an absolute disaster for not having Jimmy Johnson in the Ring of Honor for a long time. And yeah, a lot of Cowboys fans, I don't believe in curses, but a lot of Cowboys fans believe that, part of the reason that we're coming up on year 29 or whatever the hell it is, since they won a Super Bowl is because of Jerry and this decision to kind of blackball Jimmy from the organization. But it's good, like I saw the announcement last week, and it's a refreshing feeling to see those two guys being able to coexist and all of that, because like that's obviously when in my life when the Cowboys were at their peak. And look, if you want to believe in I'll take anything. I'll take any shred of hope I can get for this franchise. So maybe there is a bit of karma that's going to work its way out of it. I don't know but here's the wild thing is, like, I don't even know like what made Jerry change his mind now. I don't know if it's because he's 82 and Jimmy turned 80 and he realized like the sands on the hourglass are closer to the end than they are to the beginning. I have no clue. I don't know what made him make the decision, but regardless, I'm glad it's happening.
I think it's a good karma, honestly. I
hope so. Karma. Do you think he could have fucking acted on karma 10 years ago?
Jesus.
Like, my God.
That guy in Pride, I swear, that guy can't get anything right.
Oh, it's awful. I mean, I've been very vocal about he's the Cowboys' biggest problem. And him thinking that in 2023 he can still change the organization in the game of football the way that he did in the 80s. That's a fool's errand, man. You're not going to.
It's like I wanted I wanted to be the team to win the Super Bowl, but I'm gonna be the reason it happens. Sure it doesn't work that way.
Just be happy being the owner of the team that wins the Super Bowl, dude.
Collect your
you're already a billionaire. Like you're also you're a mega celebrity in that world. Like you don't have to be the guy that changes everything.
Yeah.
Be the guy who's smart enough to realize that you can't and bring somebody in who can.
Rob, do you want to add to that Jimmy reconciliation? Anything you want to add to that while you throw up again?
I don't care. I've been very happy for Jerry Jones has operated things the way that he has all these years.
Of course you have. Me too.
And speaking to how he operates as an owner, we around here in DC we long for the days of Jack Kent Cooke where he signed checks and stayed out of the way. And he sipped champagne in the owner's box and all of that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And as long as you won, he was fine. Jerry's a character. I mean, Jerry's funny, man.
That's the understatement of the year.
Jerry is funny, man. And look, Jerry's funny. And look, the only Cowboy who's funnier than Jerry is Michael Irvin. Okay.
He's at least entertaining though.
Mike is great. I mean, and it's very conflicting seeing Michael Irvin because he's a Cowboy and I hate Cowboys, but Mike is always fun to see on television.
Yeah.
no, but no, objectively speaking, yeah. I mean, he should put. Yeah, I mean, come on, man. Look, you wouldn't have no Super Bowls without Jimmy.
Nope.
Exactly.
I mean, you should put him. I mean, come on now. I mean, it's ridiculous, and and it's overdue. Jimmy belongs there. He's as important part of Cowboy history as Roger Staubach and Michael Irvin and Emmitt Smith and everybody else. So I mean, he should be there.
Certainly the most consequential period too, especially of that franchise, is that era.
Oh,
that
for
period.
sure.
You know what I'm saying? So it makes perfect sense.
And they're doing it. It is cool. They're doing it on December 30th because that'll be a game that Troy Aikman will be on the call for.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Is that the Detroit game?
Yeah, it's the Detroit game.
Well,
So it's the last home game of the year. So Aikman will be in the house. They did that on purpose.
Okay. That'd be a huge game, obviously too.
I'm glad they're not doing it tomorrow because you guys don't need y'all getting any extra motivation.
Oh no, we'll find a way to screw up tomorrow.
13.5 point spread that game. That's a lot of points.
I hate that. I hate that.
I did the last episode. I just picked with Zach. I took Commanders on the points.
Well,
a lot of points.
Well, Jim, I can guarantee you. I don't know what the final result is going to be, but at some point in the second half, our secondary is going to just start giving up like it's for free.
I hope so. And here's the deal. I mean, I mean, this is I'm not like trying to throw shade, but like, there's no reason the Cowboys should lose tomorrow. There is
no.
Absolutely no reason. But I've seen the Cowboys on Thanksgiving lose to bad, like a good Cowboys team lose to bad teams. So no, I can't in this rivalry too.
Yeah,
not outside of this rivalry, but in this rivalry, I've seen it.
You hear Jim's PTSD now?
I can't. You don't take nothing for granted. I never. Easy afternoon on Thanksgiving.
Well, look. I get more scared when we play a sorry team now than when we play a good team. Because I mean,
you mean like us, the Giants?
Yeah.
Come on,
yes.
Man.
Sorry. Yes, and because I'm sorry, man. No, look. The only thing funny good about the Giants is now look up. No, I mean y'all's quarterback. It's funny because
you mean Danny DeVito?
Well, because then when they showed that shot of his family in the stands, I mean that was like the most on brand.
You couldn't script it any better.
No, I mean that was just. I mean that was the most on brand.
Looked like Jersey Shore.
Yes. Oh my God!
Yeah. Generation.
Oh my God! Yeah, I mean
that was the worst.
Yeah, I mean. And look, I even admit I laughed a little bit when he got a touchdown. He started doing the finger thing when he got a touchdown. I mean, I even had to laugh at that. I mean,
that team frustrates me to no end.
But cause we played good against the Eagles both times. We beat Denver, but then they went out and completely crapped the bed against Chicago. Right? I mean,
it doesn't make sense, man.
That's what we do, man. Yeah, that's what we do.
Yeah. Anyway, fellas, happy Thanksgiving. 2
Same
hours,
to you,
2 hours, 3 minutes for the podcast, man. Hey, man, I don't be a long one. I didn't think it'd be this long, but I'm okay with it. Rob, anything you want to plug when you got here?
Yeah. So as always, every week on the Mindless Wrestling podcast, me, DJ, and Jason. The last we did a watch along, like I said, Survivor Series match. We did that this week. Every 2 weeks, you can find me on my own thing, the Rob the Genius podcast.
All right, Big Jim, you know it.
Yeah, you can get me at Big Jim Sports on Twitter. Hit the link tree. You'll find discussions with a nobody. I'm gonna try to get a new one of those out. It's been a couple of months. This is the time of year, man. It just with Huddle Up and 3CT, it takes a back burner, and I'm not even sorry about it. I have some ideas down. I might, just depending how the weekend shakes out, it's going to be a busy one. So I'm going to try to get something there. Huddle Up podcast. We had our show drop yesterday. I don't even, dude, that's weird. This week is so effed. I have no clue what day it is. So that dropped yesterday, last night. So you can get that episode. And then 3CT, we had our Tuesday podcast dropped yesterday. We are not live tomorrow because of Thanksgiving, but we do have a new episode that'll be hitting the podcast and YouTube channel at midnight. So we have a Survivor Series preview and a Survivor Series Jeopardy that I threw together. So
Nice.
check that out. Give us a like and a subscribe. We will have another Tuesday where we're going to get together at some point and get a Tuesday podcast for next week together. So yeah, I mean, that's that we keep rolling along. That's like a machine, man. You can't stop us. But yeah, just hit the link tree in my feed, because that's where you can get everything. We have Twitter and Facebook and TikTok and everything for all the shows. But just hit the link tree at Big Jim Sports.
Right, fellas, great job as always, man. Awesome job tonight.